TruthSeekah and or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah Podcast.
Gargoyles, psychics, everything's ungodly. Dark savage.
Streaming live at TruthSeekah.com.
She's not a Christian.
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark-sided stuff.
And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the TruthSeekah Podcast. My name is TruthSeekah. How's it going? I'm your host. Excited, delighted to be here with you guys today to join in some spiritual conversation, build each other up, edification, and just hear some really cool stories with really cool people. I enjoy having these conversations with my guests, enjoy hanging out with the chat, hanging out with the stream. So give a quick shout out to everybody who's poking their heads in the chat room right now. Give a quick shout out to Gio, Jasmine Smith, Tina, Christy Folks, Home Sauce, and Davy Jones and Chris Garner, all you beautiful people, everybody who's going to join us today live. Shout out to you guys, and shout out to everybody listening on the podcasting apps as well. I love each and every one of you guys, and we're going to build and co-create something beautiful today. Quick shout out to all of the patrons, everybody supporting my work via Patreon, because I couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much again. Every time, from the bottom of my heart, I really mean that. We are co-creating this together. This show wouldn't exist without your support. So thank you again from the bottom of my heart. Some of the newest supporters here on Patreon, we have Megan, Sean Kirian, Sydney John Ney, Laura Manson, Scott, Nehemiah Juarez, and thank you guys for believing in my work and coming on to support. If you'd like to do that, head on over to patreon.com/TruthSeekah. There you get access to my entire discography, my life's work of music, all of that good stuff. 10 plus albums over there, around 200 songs. All of the new music that I'm working on is uploaded there as soon as it's done. So as soon as I get done with the song, it's uploaded there. Just put out some new music the other day. You need to go over there and check it out. It's pretty cool stuff. So you get access to all that, as well as our School of the Mystics, which we do every Thursday night, 7 p.m. Central, which we'll be doing tonight if you're listening live. Every Thursday, 7 p.m. Central. It's our community gathering. We go through courses together, do studies together. Sometimes we just hang out and just tell stories and get to know one another. And last week, we were just listening to music, just hanging out, just kind of building with friends, man, friends and family. So if you're looking for community, there's a bunch of tools and resources that we have available. And the School of the Mystics is part of that. Patreon.com/TruthSeekah. Thank you guys so much. Today's guest, Dr. Kate Flynn. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. I got your book in the mail the other day. For those watching on YouTube, you can see I'm holding it up. It's Activating Ascension, the ultimate guide for navigating a new life. New life is really good. we get stagnant. We always talk about like having that dream that's been there since we were children, but it's as we get older, sometimes it becomes a pipe dream, or we have to let that dream go and come back down to earth and hold down these 9 to 5s and somehow keep these lights on and things like that. So the dreams and the visions and the things that were within us when we were a kid, we feel like we let them go and they just go somewhere to die. But there's mindful things that we can do, practical things that we can do to kind of go back, recapture that dream. If that dream was given from our creator, then we can actually go in and manifest it. And ascension, understanding that in these practical ways to do that. I was able to breeze through your book. I didn't finish it yet, but some of those practices are in here, and you have eloquently put different practices in ways that we can do that. We're not alone. We have help. We're fearfully and wonderfully made, our bodies, our minds, to be able to use it to recapture the dream, whatever that vision is, to bring it into this reality. And we're going to talk about that today. Activating Ascension. Many people think that's like a state of enlightenment. Like if you have ascended, Jesus ascended, we have the ascended masters. Where does ascension come into play when it comes to those dreams or that vision that's within you? And what's the difference between that and enlightenment?
I really look at it as activating ascension being activating an ascension out of your ego and into your heart. Into our hearts is when we are most aligned with our souls and with the divine powers that are collaborating in our favor. I've never really looked at the difference between enlightenment and ascension. I think enlightenment is something that happens as you ascend, and we are all in various states of ascension. Just holding that intention to live from our hearts and to create a new reality brings about an enlightenment.
You talked about here on the back, it says that we all have the ability, and we're all sent here to bring something positive to change the world. And that's something we've been exploring lately with a couple of different guests, is that everyone is sent here to do that, not just the chosen ones or the light workers or those who are called out or choose that life path, but it's everybody is sent here with a gift, with something special. Is this book how we can unlock that, whatever that is, to bring to the table for the healing of humanity and things like that?
Absolutely. It would be a powerful tool to unlock that. I really do think with what's going on in the world right now, we need all hands on deck. We can't be figuring out, trying to be somebody else or being what other people think we should be. It's time to show up as we are and as we're created to be. And that's what's going to really make the difference. You talked about we're born with these, and then we have all these experiences, some of them what we call good and some of them what we call bad, and they all form and shape us. This was not necessarily an altruistic work that I put together. This was a work that came out of necessity. I had lived my life. I joke when I tell the story that when I was in chiropractic school, I was diagnosed with a severe case of HMS, which is hot mess syndrome. And I was coming up on turning 30, really thinking, I can't live my life like this anymore. Something has to change. And it started for me by reading Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. And that book completely changed the course of my life. I do believe we have to go through some of these things. If everything kind of works out well for us, we don't really grow through that. So it's through adversity and exploring resilience and finding out what we're made of through that we really can uncover who we are. So to me, it's like returning to your authentic self or unbecoming everything you were never meant to be so that you can live as your authentic self. And that all, to me, is resonant with enlightenment and ascension.
Mm-hmm. Some of the questions you have on the back of the book that kind of explain it a little bit. It's just these questions that I think we all ask ourselves. Why can't I change? Why is life so hard? How can I get better results faster? How do I let go of the past once and for all? Why does this keep happening? How do I unlock my potential? And then the final one you have here is, isn't there a shortcut? And so we all like shortcuts. They usually don't work out or pay off, the shortcuts, but just like you're talking about, we have to do the work. Like we have to have the life experiences. We have to have that character, those character traits somehow imparted to us, whether it's schooling. I think that essentially we're all in the universal mystery schools. I think we're all initiated there, the spiritual practice, and we're at different levels and in different grades and things like that. So what does this mean here? Because we're talking about we have to do the work. We learn from our mistakes. I think that they're good, the bad, the ugly. I welcome all of it, and I'm thankful for all of it. Mm-hmm. In hindsight, when you're going through the bad stuff, at the moment, you're like, somebody help me. But we're able to look back and make peace with our demons and even see how those demons or those dark forces were used strategically to kind of catapult us where we needed to be. And we wouldn't be here or wherever we're trying to go without those little guys in our life. And so as far as shortcut, are you teaching shortcuts, or is that is it worded weird, or is there, I know there's keys and techniques, but are there really shortcuts to like bypass a lot of stuff without having to go through it? I know we can learn from each other, right? People can listen to this podcast, hear the experiences, learn what to do, what not to do. And if you heed the warnings and you apply the wisdom, those are definitely shortcuts, right? You don't have to, go down a road that took us 10 years to learn the concept. If you'll apply the principles that we're sharing that took us 10 years to learn. Is that kind of what it gets to? Or if you will?
It's a little different than that. The shortcut really is being honest with yourself. One. We spend so much time not wanting to do the hard thing that we make things way harder than they need to be, because we try to go, over, around, or through. Over, around, when really, if we just go through it, if we sit with what's going on and we look at it and we honestly view it, the situation, how others are affecting it, how we're contributing to it, whatever it is, then we're present with it. We accept it first, because I believe that accepting it is what allows you to make a change. So you might not be responsible for it, but once it's in your lap, it's yours to work with. Does that make sense? There's a quote that says, it's about blame and how, it might not be your fault. That's what it is. It may not be your fault, but if you accept responsibility for it, then you can move through it and change it. So the shortcut, though, that I'm referring to specifically on the back of the book is by identifying the obstacles, identifying the things that are hindering your path, making it more difficult, and then using the techniques that are in there to start to transmute them and move them out of the way. So maybe you go from, a tiny, narrow, steep incline to something that's a little wider, a little easier to travel on, free from so many obstacles.
What was, if we go back to the beginning, like what was the thing or the things that transpired in your life that kind of got you into this type of work? I like to talk to people if they've, like, when they were children, did you have any supernatural encounters, any things that kind of put you on this life path that happened when you was a child, or what's your story to kind of get into this type of work? Right.
And I always tell people that while that happens a lot, that is not my story. That was not my experience. Yeah. When I was 2, my dad died very unexpectedly and suddenly. Over the course of about 2 weeks, he got really sick. He had vasculitis. All of the vessels in his body swelled up. And at that time, steroids were really experimental. And so they told my mom that they could give him these steroids, but they weren't sure how he would react to it, if he would accept her as his wife and his kids as his family. So my mom made the very difficult decision not to pursue that, and he passed away. So that singular experience, that loss, has affected my life probably more than anything else. The one thing that sticks with me always from that Eckhart Tolle book is you're never angry for the reasons you thought you were angry. And I had spent my whole life being angry and didn't know why. Yeah. And really, through exploring that book, I realized it was because I was 2 and I lost my dad, and I was really not happy about that. And this, the God that I couldn't understand a God that would do that to a little girl. So as soon I was raised Catholic, and have no hard feelings about the Catholic Church. I left as soon as I could to kind of explore different ways, and really through this journey have learned that, God isn't a puppet master in the sky that's pulling the strings and making all these things happen. We all have our path, our journey. I have a very close relationship with my father now that I probably wouldn't have had he been alive. So that kind of shaped my experience, and always looking for approval and acceptance from men, basically.
Yeah.
And I'm just grateful that there was no Facebook or social media during that time. There's no evidence of all of it, but that was the hot messenger. It was like, I gotta figure out how to do something differently, how to figure out where this anger is coming from and how to let it go.
That's big for me too. Like I try to look back and fathom that if like when I was going through my teenage phase and just wild, rebellious, I'd be in trouble. Like I'd be in trouble if we had social media. I did so much crazy stuff, and I would have been the one wanting the attention. I would have put all of it on social media. I don't know where I would be right now. It's so crazy to go back and think about that. But yeah, I think we got lucky. But it's cool now. We can use it to our advantage and use it the right way. Use it for good. And you see people people are doing it. They're using it, and I mean, just craziness on online. They don't know how to act, But that's a big one. We talk about being thankful. I talk about being thankful for my demons. Somebody made a Facebook post a couple weeks ago, and they said, okay, right now, just begin to thank God for all the beautiful things in your life and all the good stuff. And I said, okay, that's good. Thank him for the bad stuff too. Mm-hmm. They're like, what? No. We're not going to thank God for the bad stuff. I'm like, yeah, you need it. Like, it's building character within you. You know, that stuff is needed more than the good stuff, essentially, at the end of the day, and I have that loving relationship now with my demons, if you will. But some people, they look at it, they get scared of that stuff. And then, a lot of people grow bitter, and they blame God, like you said, you did at a young age. And a lot of people can't get over that. Why do bad things happen to good people? And there's this dichotomy that people can't seem to get over there, of that God would allow that to happen. Like, how do you reconcile that? I reconcile it by seeing the beauty in it in the aftermath. But how do you reconcile it going through it with a relationship with a creator, with an essence or whatever, that you did this to me, you allowed this, those type of ways? How does someone get over that? Because there's a lot of people who they have that disconnect. God would not let that. My God would never let this happen. Therefore, this is another God, or this is the devil. The devil did this. It wasn't God. These type of things. How do we reconcile that?
I reconcile it by, this is what I share, and I'll find out one day if I'm right or wrong. If I'm wrong, I don't really care. But the thing that helps me reconcile everything that's going on in the world, not only my own experience, but the atrocities you see play out on the news, is that we all pick this. We become human to experience the spectrum, everything from the most wonderful thing to the most awful thing. And if we didn't need to experience those things, then we could just live in our crystalline light bodies, and we wouldn't have to come into the dense energies of the earth. So I look at it like, I pick my parents, they pick me, I pick my siblings. We all kind of came into these contracts of agreement that said, I'll do this for you, you do this for me, to bring us to wherever it is that our hearts are aligned and we're trying to get to. So I feel like everything we have because we're a match for it. So I was a match for those relationships because that was where I was vibrating at that time. Once I got tired of that and wanted to experience something differently and started doing this other stuff, my vibration rose, and therefore the things that I were attracting into my life changed too. So as long as you look at it from, there is no puppet master in the sky. I believe that God is love. I like what Richard Rohr says, that God is a verb, like love each other. And that's what fills the spaces in between. But when I look at prayer and things like that, I look at it as though I am praying that I come into alignment with that which is automatically being sent to me the moment I ask for it. Mm-hmm. It's not a fairy godmother saying, okay, you get this wish, you don't get this wish. It's
begging, petitioning. Yeah.
It's asking, it is given. So if I'm asking and it's being given, it's up to me to receive it. So when I pray, it's open me to receive that. And when I pray for other people, like if I was going to pray for you, I'd ask that you rise to meet that which I know is being sent to you.
Yeah.
And to me, that's very empowering.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, because like I mean, just in the prayers like that, in the spoken word, you know, of that you're actually creating it as you speak it, and you know, like I come from the evangelical Christian circles and stuff, so I know all about prayer, fasting, all of that kind of stuff, but there was a moment that my prayers changed when it changed from begging or petitioning God, whether it was for healing for others or someone who is dealing with oppression or a loss or whatever, instead of asking God, if you love us, would you please heal her? Would you please take this emotion away, or whatever the case is? And, you know, from like petitioning God that way to understanding our roles with vibration and speaking words, the power of words in that prayer, the prayer's changed to say, okay, let me bless this person with peace. Let me impart peace to them. So, you know, say, you know, whether we want to do it in the name of Jesus or whatever, but I bless you. I speak peace over you. I cast out any darkness. I speak love and light to be imparted to you right now. And then things begin to change. Miracles begin to happen. And as the spirit of expectancy, where we're not showing up hoping God would act on our behalf, but knowing that he already has, right? We're here, we have the breath of life in our lungs, and we're made in that image and likeness to go forth and do these wonders and feats and stuff, and to know that it's already happened and we have that power. I begin to see my prayer life change and see a lot more miracles and stuff happen in my life. And it's a common story. It's not just me. A lot of people, when they understand their power and their authority as sovereign people, and people who are anointed and who, you know, walk in love and light, they have that power. When it comes to ascension, right, like some people have, I guess, an idea of leaving this place, or we've heard ideas like you have to get ready for ascension to get to heaven. Like you have to get yourself ready or you won't be able to ascend. I've heard theories like when the end of the world comes and the world is destroyed, you have to have your light body ready through this ascension alchemical process, or you're going to be stuck here and you're going to burn here. You know, there's all kind of weird ideas about ascension. People tie it into the rapture. We have, you know, we're going to be taken out of this place and leave. But what does really, I know you've touched on it, but what does it mean versus we're going to ascend to leave this place? We should be wanting to ascend to change this place and make it better, right?
Yeah, a lot of people say a lot of stuff, and I think it's funny how as humans we just love holding on to our dogma. So we'll leave the church, but still take that dogmatic thinking with us and make all these rules up.
Yeah,
I did a video on grounding, and somebody just sharing a grounding technique, and somebody commented, "You can't ground like that. You have to have your shoes off to ground." And I was like, I don't need that many rules around around what I'm looking at. So there are a lot of thoughts out there. I feel like when we're creating a reality out of love, we won't be trying to escape the third one they're in. So we have this belief that this is so bad and this is so hard, we must escape out of it. And so when I talk to people about like third dimensional reality, fifth dimensional reality, it's like you can't wish yourself out of the third dimension or fight yourself out of the third dimension. You know, you have to move through it. You have to look at those things. You have to, if you want peace in the world, you have to choose peace in your own life. And that then stuff gets a little tricky because you have that to forgive or the fight that you want to keep going, right? So I don't really concern myself, I guess, with what happens when we're ascended. I believe that we are multidimensional beings. We have ascended through this. A lot of us have ascended through this many times, and we're here on this planet right now to assist in that. Do I believe that we're all going to like disappear? I don't know. Nothing like that has happened so far that I've seen in my experience. I think that these are shifts that happen subtly over time as we all realize that we are interdependent and interconnected, that I am you and you are me. And even though we have different bodies that look like they're boundaries and separation, we really are one. And then as we do that, maybe we won't feel like we need to escape from it.
Yeah, I know, right? The escapism thing, wanting to leave this place and whatever it takes to leave this place. I mean, versus to be like, we should want to ascend transformed so that we're comfortable in our bodies and we're not looking for an easy way out or
right.
the shortcuts. We have to go through it. We have to do the work. And then that was my big thing. Everybody, like, even coming out of Christianity, there was like people waiting on the rapture, and they were like, come Lord Jesus quickly. Like, come Lord Jesus quickly. Like, you believe you have family members who are going to burn for eternity if they die, but you're ready to leave this place. You have work to do if you believe that doctrine. Like, if you really believe that, you have work to do, right? But you want to leave and just escape this place and just start over. And it's so weird how every generation feels like they're the generation that this is going to happen to and stuff like that. They just want to leave this place,
Well, it absolves anybody of responsibility. If you're waiting on the rapture, then you don't have to do anything in the world. You don't have to love your neighbor. You don't have to forgive people you don't want to forgive. So it's a comfortable story we tell ourselves to avoid looking inside.
Yeah.
And a lot of us, though, have also been taught that we are victims, that we are not in control, that there's nothing we can do, that we're dependent on, whether it's God or the church or authority or something outside of ourselves. So that's a big awakening right there, just to realize that, I've given all that power out to ideas and constructs that I don't even align with, that really don't logically even make sense when you sit down and dissect it. And now I can claim all that power back.
When I talk about opening the third eye, like, that's a big thing now. I mean, the New Age movement, spiritualist circles, how to open the third eye, techniques, things that you can do. When I think about opening the third eye, I feel like it's something that we're born with it already open. If you want to call it the third eye, that's how we're able to see into the spirit realm. That's how we're able to communicate with the other side, receive messages, all of that through the third eye pineal gland. I believe it. I don't think that it's something that we do that it opens up one day, like it's a closed eye and then it awakens. I think that there's techniques. You have a lot of them in this book. There's things that we can have around us, a lot of things that kind of make us more sensitive to the spirit realm, or that actually stimulate the third eye or that muscle. Like, we have to learn how to use it, and we get better at it and things like that. So I think there's things and techniques that we can do. You talk a little bit in the book about unlocking the sixth sense. And so that's essentially, right? Wouldn't we use the third eye to be able to see and move around in the spirit realm, like that sixth sense? Is that kind of what that is for you?
Absolutely. I do think we're all born with the capabilities. I think there's some intention in there in what we choose to experience. Some people may say, I want to be wide open when I come in and connected, and they either maintain that connection, or the adults around them, tell them what you're seeing isn't real. That's not true. It's your imagination. And they start to close it. And some people might come in with it, maybe not all the way closed, but partially closed, whatever's going to most support what they've laid out for themselves in that lifetime. I do think it's like a muscle, like learning to ride a bike. Anybody can learn to do it and access it. That's one thing that I don't know that there are shortcuts for, other than doing the practice. If you're just saying, I want to be awake, I want to be able to see, but you're not doing anything, then it's going to be more challenging to get to.
Yeah, one thing I think that's cool about a lot of these practices and stuff that you have in the book about awakening ascension, like, there's things that we can do to wake up, but what do you do once you're awake? How do you stay awake? How do you not? I mean, many of us wake up just like on a day-to-day, and we hit the snooze button. We want to go back to sleep, and there's things that we do, that can kind of lull us back to sleep, or we're like in this higher state of vibration for weeks, months at a time, and then something happens, a tragedy, whatever it is. We're not doing the work anymore. We're just we shift back to autopilot, and then we find ourselves almost in the same boat. Like, man, for me, it almost seemed like a different person. Like, man, what was going on? Like, there was so much creativity. My words carried power. I cared more. All of these things that came with the awakening process, essentially. But then, something can happen, and feel like it was a different person. Like, how do we stay awake through like being mindful and continuing the processes? Like, these aren't one-time processes, right? These aren't one-time things that we do, right?
No, and I think it's normal to have a normal, whatever that word means, to have a little up and down. And I also think when we go through periods of really quick awakening, it can kind of turn our lives upside down. And some of the, we realize people come in and they say, I want to open my intuition. I want to be intuitive. It's like, well, what if you open your intuition and you realize you're married to the wrong person, or you're in the wrong job, or it would be in alignment with your soul to move to California or do something like that. So we want to be to the extent that we're comfortable with it. And as soon as we lose that comfort, then we start to shut it down a little bit. When we see, oh, these are things that I'm being asked to look at, that I'm being asked to change, or we see the ripple waves go out into our relationships and see how we start to rock the boat in that regards. It can be like, being asleep was a comfy blanket from, childhood, and we call it back to us because it's easier. Then we don't have to rock the boat. We don't have to call people out on their stuff. We don't have to really make any changes, because even though we know we want to change for the better, what is known is safer to the ego than what is unknown. I really like Don Miguel Ruiz's work on that, and the 4 agreements.
Mm-hmm. So it's good too, I think, because like you have the contrast, you know what it's like to be walking in the light in that high vibration. You know what that feels like, and you know what it feels like to just exist. You know what I'm saying? And so you can determine, now that you've been on both sides, like what's better, how to keep it, how to maintain it. And if you really want it, I do think it's for everybody, but I don't think it's anything to play with. I don't think that spirituality is anything to play with. I don't think that religion is anything to play with. I think it's very serious. But, you're talking about opening up to these realms, manifestation happening, angelic contact, ETs, like whatever. I mean, the list goes on and on. You have all of this stuff happening for you. You're manifesting whatever you want really fast, and you're stepping into a new life, and all of this stuff happens. You're almost pushed into it. Like, wow, what did I do in the last 3 months? And all of this stuff is working, and I don't know. It does get overwhelming. We have to learn how to maintain it, and I would talk about like, people pursuing their dreams, but you kind of have to go through the testings. You got to go through the trials. You got to go through the bad stuff at times, just to make sure that you really want it. Learn etiquette. Like, what if we just, went live on this podcast and just started bashing and attacking people and calling people names and out of their name and all of this kind of stuff? I don't think that we would be very honoring of the platform. I don't think that. I think that we could even destroy the platform that which was bestowed upon us or we built. And look at, make this connection. Look at Roseanne Barr, what she did, and now she killed it all with a tweet. Like, once we build it, once we're in it, like, being able to maintain it is a whole nother ball game. And I think that staying mindful with these practices, and I mean, I think that it's part of staying awake, and not going back to sleep, essentially.
I think it would be challenging to use logic to keep that going, right? It's like an addict, an addict in recovery knows the difference between being clean and sober and being addicted and actively using, but yet knowing that isn't enough to stop them from going back, right? So it's about using the tools, recognizing when fear comes up. I think fear is probably a really big component of coming down on that roller coaster. So I typically recommend people, they do some kind of daily morning routine. I like to do the resistance shake from the book. It's just 60 seconds. You shake your whole body as vigorously as you can. And you'll find that no matter what your state of mind was before you went into that, you're going to feel better afterwards. do some kind of fear release exercise. There's a few of those in the book, and a grounding exercise. And that takes not even 5 minutes. And if you start your day off with something like that, it's going to set the tone for the day. Now, I know there are other ways you can do journaling and mantras and meditation and yoga. And just pick something that works for you. Be consistent. Do it each morning.
Yeah.
And that practice alone can make it so maybe you still go down a little bit, but you don't, take a big nosedive. It's more subtle shifts and rolls in the energy and in your vibration. Fear, though, fear can convince you of all kinds of things.
Yeah. It could trick you.
So, and realizing, and a lot of times, we want to, again, if we externalize that fear and say dark forces or, something outside of me is bringing this about, we're falling back into that pattern. When we realize, oh, I'm changing and that's scary and my ego's slamming on the brakes, then we can come back into the place of empowerment and we say, oh, I can do something about that. I recognize that, I see it, and I can do it differently. In the book, so the first part of the book is all about opening intuition. From identifying those things that help close it down to then programs and things you can do daily to open it back up. The second part is the clearing of the obstacles, which is a start to finish healing system in itself. It's the work I do in private practice, so you can learn how to do that on your own. The third part, though, is all about that creation piece, and that's maintaining. That's mind-body purification, looking at what you're eating, looking at things you can do on the daily to hold on to the growth that you've experienced
versus the self-sabotage,
right?
which can happen. And some people are prone to it. But I think going through that stuff, you're gonna continue to go through it. You're gonna continue those cycles until you learn from them, until you learn how to break the cycle. How to turn the cycle the other way, or turn the cycles off and on at will. Maybe self-sabotage is good in certain instances and situations. I felt this mechanism within me, and I've caught it. But I had this thing where I like to be innovative and creative, and I'll build something for years, months, whatever. But when other people start copying it, that naturally happens. Whether it's a genre or style of music that we're creating, and then it starts to catch on, and other people are starting to do it, and then I leave it. Okay, let me go on to something else. Everybody's on this now, and I wasn't able to be consistent with what I was building. I would build it for months, a year, maybe more, but once it got successful, starting to get successful, you self-sabotage and move on because you want to be unique. You want to be different. And I had to catch myself like, man, I'm continuing to do this in many different areas of my life, friendships, relationships, whatever that I'm building, my music, whatever. And it was, it's not good, but I had to catch myself and say, hold on, this is a weird cycle that I'm repeating. And I need to stop it because I'm never going to be successful at anything. I'm going to be a jack of all trades, but a master of none if I keep doing this,
Right. So that goes back to everything you have because you need it. And that's one of the most challenging things to get people to see. So someone will come in and they'll say, I have really bad neck pain, or I have headaches, or whatever it is. And I'll say, okay, how are you benefiting from that? And they're always like, what? I'm not benefiting from this. I want this to go away. It's like, well, everything you have because you need. So what are you getting out of it? One of my very first patients in practice, I put her on supplements. She came in for nutrition, and she got a lot better, a lot fast. And then I didn't see her anymore. And I talked to a mutual friend, and she said, oh, well, she started getting better, and all the benefits of her sickness started to go away. So before, when she was sick, she'd sleep in all day. Her husband didn't expect much of her. And, and then once she started feeling better, it was like more expectations were placed upon her, and she didn't like that. Now she's since moved beyond that. So I look at it as healing as a spiral. So we get the choice. So I look at it as we start in preparation, then we go to repair, rebalance, rejuvenate, and radiate. And we circle around each time and we say, okay, did I learn what I needed from this? Am I going to circle? Am I going to chase my tail and circle? Or am I going to ascend to that next spiral? And sometimes, we don't even see it when it's happening. And that's typically preparation or repair. Like, you don't even know it. And then you start to become aware, like you were saying, you realize, hey, this pattern keeps repeating itself. What is that trying to tell me? one of my favorite acronyms from an ARE conference I went to. The guy called them AFOGs, another freaking opportunity for growth.
Mm-hmm.
And until we see them and say, okay, oh, that's what you're trying to tell me. I am good enough, or I can do this and still be unique because nobody else is going to do it in the same way that I'm doing it. So I can stay with it. And then you move up through. And of course, the upper spirals are a lot more fun than the lower ones. But
yeah, but they're all used for learning tools, man. If you're not learning from them, then that you're going to keep repeating them. Those who don't learn from the past are doomed to recreate it or repeat it, and that's definitely something we've all dealt with. Most of this stuff, I feel like, it seems like new territory. Maybe because I have come out of the religious background, and we're, you have your do's, your don'ts, this is wrong, this is right. That is, man, it's hell coming out of that. And there's a lot of people waking up. I deal with a lot of people coming out of religion. They still hold to their core beliefs of God, of Christ, and that. But as far as the dogma and the rules and, these made up things that are in religion, it's really hard to come out of that programming. They really are programmed to right. And it's very hard to come out of it. But you start to learn how to do it, and it could take years. It most likely would take years. I wish there was just one thing you could do to just cut ties with it, and it's fine. You got to walk it out. You start to question, teachers that come into your life, other things that you feel drawn to, but you're innately scared to look into it because of the dogma, and it's you can't just turn that off. It's embedded within you. If I touch this, if that dog's growling at me, it's probably gonna bite me if I touch him or whatever. And we feel that way about, you talk about meditation, chakras, crystals, anything spiritual, and I'm dealing with so many people who are trying to come out of that, and just that back and forth. And even me, I did it for years, and self-sabotaging, coming out of it and then running back to it because of being scared. And this is the only way that's right and stuff. So, man, getting over that dogma and stuff that's been placed upon people is really hard. And is there, what would you recommend for people to do? Is it just something they just have to go through? Walking in love, seeing the good in all that's kind of what helped me. Well, what would you recommend for people who are coming out of dogma and just whether it's religious or not, just that dogma that I can't do this, I'm never going to get ahead, I have to stay here, I'm always going to be poor, my family was poor, all of these type of ideas and thinking.
So that programming is very powerful, and that's how they keep people dependent. If you need them to be saved, then you're always going to be a member of the church. So I tell people the purpose of what I do isn't to drastically change the course of your life. It's to add efficiency to its natural unfolding. So it can take years and years, or, you can use this system to really bring that down and maybe do it in 2 or 3 months. But in the first part of the book, there is a section on discernment. And I would suggest that people start there, because dogma is one of the biggest blocks to third eye awakening, third eye opening. So there are techniques in that section that will help move you through that. But one of them is to just sit with whatever you're thinking, sit with it, listen to it in your heart, and feel. Does that feel like truth, or does that feel like something someone else told me I'm supposed to believe? Is that true for me? Or is it other people's beliefs or opinions? And that's one of the biggest obstacles. So I don't know if you saw the tables in the back of the book that kind of take you through. Yeah. Okay. So one of the obstacles that comes up all the times is having accepted other people's beliefs or opinions as truth, because we are so molded by our cultural experiences, and especially our families. And if we grew up in that circumstance, it's part of our experience. It's woven into our DNA. But sitting with it and saying, does my heart expand when I say that statement? This person's going to hell because X, Y, Z. Does that make my heart expand? Yeah. Or does that make my heart go like this? Yeah. Because I don't believe there's a loving creator that would have your heart expand if someone's going to hell because they did, X, Y, or Z. if you look at that part of the Bible, we're all going to hell for, wearing mixed fibers and all kinds of crazy things like that. So being present with that and feeling that expansion or contraction, which one is happening?
It usually comes down to people being, they feel like they got the one up. Like, I'm doing something that you're not doing, right? I'm doing something that makes me closer to God, than you're doing, versus like I'm going to heaven, you're going to hell. And there's just one up that people want to have, and they do it with the within that, with the doctrines and the dogmas, like back and forth. They'll like compare it to see who's closer to the so-called truth. And at the end of the day, they don't even know it, but it's their truth. Like, that dogma has become their truth. It doesn't make it truth. It makes it truth to them in their mind, in their psyche, in their cognitive dissonance. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, it's just like they're doing it to try to make themselves feel better, because they've done a lot of bad stuff. You know what I'm saying? Right. They've done a lot of evil in their life. So now they're like trying to make recompense for it. And God has forgiven me, but he hasn't. If he's forgiven you, then why would you continue to do these things? This weird dichotomy that goes on there. Right when we went live, there was a comment. I think it was by, I'm not sure who exactly right off, maybe Jesse Lee, I'm not sure. But they made some observations about the paintings behind you. And I seen them. They was like, oh, those paintings are beautiful. And they were, oh yeah, especially the purple one. And they were going back and forth with whatever. And I seen it. It just looked like abstract art. And then I was going through the book, and I seen the number activation sequences, which I've never heard of that. And then I'm looking closer at your pictures, and there's numbers woven all throughout these paintings behind you. Talk a little bit about the number activation sequences, because I've never heard of that.
Okay. So I had done a meditation at home. I was living in Maryville at the time, and I went really far out there, and I was having a hard time getting back in. So one thing to consider is when this happened for me, it happened like, I went from not having any idea of intuition to channeling and seeing visions within a couple years' time. So I was kind of freaking out. I had 2 friends that I knew could help me. That they were in Knoxville, but no one was answering their phone. So I knew that they were at this particular place. So I drove up there, and I was like, you have to help me. I'm freaking out. I can't figure this out. And my friend Denise kind of got this faraway look in her eye. And then she came back to me, and she just started saying numbers like 3, 8, 4, 5, 9, 1, 2. And at first I was like, are you freaking kidding me right now? I cannot get in my body. But the more numbers she said, the more in my body I became. And so over the last 10 years, that's probably a technique I use more than any others, because for meditations or visualizations, you have to be quiet at home, not driving. But if you're upset at traffic at a stoplight, you can say, what numbers will help me move through this, and move through them. So I liken it to, we have all the frequencies we need within us, and the numbers help activate those frequencies that will move us forward and deactivate those that will hold us back. So it's quick, it's easy, as long as you don't get too stuck in left brain. Well, what do these numbers mean? Where do they come from? If you just let them come through and you ask for them, they'll be there. And it even helps sometimes, if you start with your phone number, your zip code, your address, numbers like that. And then eventually you'll start hearing these numbers, and it's like, whoa, where's that coming from? And so you trust that it is helping you move through whatever intention that you've made. Now, this painting behind me, this one is called Conscious Evolution of Consciousness. And that's actually an interdimensional being on there. Her name is Q. And you can invite her off the painting and into your experience to help you expand in your consciousness. And so all of these were intuitively channeled. I heard specifically what colors to paint where, which numbers to put.
Yeah.
And
that's why I wanted to ask you about the numbers, because in the number sequence, I mean, you have these different numbers laid out. As you're explaining it, it kind of sounds like it could be random. Just start saying random numbers.
Yes.
But you have these numbers in these sequences for a reason. Do these numbers, is it dealing with numerology, that each number represents this type of Is it random? I mean,
No,
what's with the sequence?
so there are sequences in the book, and I call them like universal keys. It's a place to begin for each person. And then if you notice in there, it always says, listen for additional numbers that are specifically for you. So it's a key to get you started. And those can be repeated and reused. I had somebody write down the numbers I said in session, and then they went back and resaid them. And the first time they felt great afterwards. The second time they're like, oh, I said those numbers again and I felt terrible. I was like, well, they're one time only, they're one time only uses. So don't necessarily repeat those. But the ones in the book, those were specifically channeled.
Just walking around, just repeating all these numbers and trying to 78543, 78546. You know, it's like, what?
Right.
Almost like there was I didn't know if it was like a sigil or a way to activate or call the entities or the vibrations in, you know? I didn't know.
I would say universal key to unlock those frequencies that are within you. That resonates more with me for what that is. But I'll show you the other ones, like this one. The one with the spirals that helps you move through the spirals. So if you're circling and you want to not circle anymore. So they are activation pieces. So you look at them and you'll have an experience. Yeah, they're invite them in.
Really beautiful. For those of you listening on the podcast, and really beautiful colors, spirals, numbers all mixed together, popping out at you, and really looks like you can travel through that far one. Like it's almost like it is a portal or a vortex that you can enter into.
Absolutely. People at first glance they're like, oh, they're paintings, and once people sit with them and look at them,
I was like, it's just they're beautiful, whatever. But it's like, wow, that's pretty intricate.
This one on the end is rewriting tragedy. I felt strongly encouraged to kind of point that out. It started out as a beautiful green under there, and then I had to paint all of that on top of it. And it was very unsettling to me at first. And then the more you look at it, it does help you rewrite tragedy and start to move forward in a different way.
Yeah, see, that's the thing how my mind works, because if we understand numerology, like numbers do represent different things, you know. So I'm looking at the numbers that are on there and what it represents. Colors represent certain things, like you said. I mean, you have a bunch in here about color as well. Different colors, it makes you feel a certain type of way when you look at a color. If you're wearing a certain type of shirt, there are a lot of people who were into mysticism and some of the ancient arts. I know David Wilcock, he would always wear a certain color shirt when he would do his lectures and presentations, because it would make the audience feel a certain type of way. And so just understanding the vibrations, the numbers and the colors and sound, all of that kind of plays hand in hand. I didn't know if it was just some activation code, like particularly with the numbers, but it's very beautiful. I like all of them. So if you guys are listening, make sure you go find the YouTube video so you can actually look at these paintings. They're really beautiful.
They're all on activatingascension.com too. You can view them all from there.
There you go, activatingascension.com. Let me ask you this too, because we had this question pop up. So I talked with a friend. I'm going to relate these two questions together. I talked with a friend who was listening to my music, and it's beautiful. Just like we're talking about, the paintings can activate ascension and kind of help you and be used as tools. The music can totally do that as well. You're able to kind of almost create a time capsule or a portal through the music and what you're experiencing and what you're going through at that time. Other people can experience that, and mine was all types of Kundalini awakening, UFO encounters, all kinds of stuff, intuition, creativity. People would listen to my music and be taken on spiritual journeys while they're listening. And this one message I got particularly from somebody listening now, Jessie Lee, said that she was listening to one of my albums and had like a Kundalini awakening while listening to the music. So, and I don't think she knew what was going on. Like it was just like listening to the music, and then started feeling her spine moving and the energy release and the euphoria and all that stuff while she's listening. So there's a I wanted to ask you, because it was formulated from a question, I think by Jessie Lee as well, but it says that, can we accidentally do some of these things mentioned in here, or do we have to be conscious of it? Like, obviously we're everyone is affected by music. Everyone is affected by numbers. Everyone is affected by colors. If you know it or not, that's universal. Everyone prays for the most part. Everyone, all most of the stuff really is practical at the end of the day. But is there fear there that you can tap into it not knowingly and activate some things in your life without knowing it? Like, what's the deal about a fear there of not knowing that, people, I mean, there's people, when it comes to the religious dogma, like, people will turn this off. They'll hear what we're talking about. Oh, you're talking about entities in the pictures. Yeah, I'm turning this off. Click. You know what I'm saying? But they don't know that when they watch a movie, it's the same thing. The entity that's in the movie or the monster or whoever, when you close your eyes, it's going to be in your dreams. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of the same type of deal. So for people who are like scared about stepping into some of this stuff or thinking that they can accidentally do it, can you? I think we're all being affected by either way, whether you want to be or not. To be conscious of it, I think you have the one up to understand this stuff that we're talking about.
Can you? I think you can. I mean, accidentally may not be the best word.
Yeah.
Maybe subconsciously or unintentionally.
Mm-hmm.
On some level, your subconscious though is going, bring it on. That's what we want. It is the fear that shuts it down. So I've heard people say, they had this vision or they had a premonition or something like that. And they said, dear God, if this is not of you, shut it down.
Yeah.
But so the words are one thing, but the vibration behind the words is much stronger than what the words are themselves. So their vibration was like, this is scaring the bejesus out of me. And if it's, so shut it down. And so that fear was coming in there and it shut it down and took it away.
Yeah.
So fear release and trusting yourself are going to be the biggest things that you can do, whether you use a technique from the book or you sit with it and you practice some deep breathing and intentionally say, okay, I know that I'm safe right now. I know that I'm loved. I know that I'm supported. I call in divine forces or divine powers to collaborate in my behalf. And when you set the stage like that, it can't be for anything that's out of alignment with your soul, right? You can't set those intentions and create that sacred space and invite anything into you that's not supposed to be.
I think that's biblical as well. I think that's a biblical principle too. Like for those who are like scared, like I think that God isn't going to give you anything that you can't handle. And if you ask for something, if you want to preface it with that has my greater good in mind, and just trust that. I did it. I mean, that was my, as I was easing, stepping out a little bit and seeing, I was seeing UFOs and light beings. And I'm like, the churches are telling you that those are demons and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Or, you don't know. So your mind always goes back to that. So that's a beautiful prayer. That's a beautiful, way to put it and say, whatever's out there that has my greater good. If you want to preface God, hey, don't send me nothing that's going to hurt me. And if you have a loving father, he's not going to do that to you anyway. So you can approach it with a level of boldness and reassurance that you're not going to be possessed if you meditate or whatever the case is. If that's where God's leading you, if he's going to lead you to it, he'll lead you through it. I believe that 100%.
Right. I also call them impulse activations. It's like when divine timing meets experiences, things are going to be catapulted and move faster than they otherwise would. So oftentimes in my experience, this has happened through car accidents, not to discourage anybody from driving it with me, but I've been in too many total car accidents, but each one moved me forward in a way that I was unwilling to go consciously. So it was a huge amount of energy that came forth and pushed me out of this little comfortable bubble that I was in. So I would start seeing things differently. I do think there was a grounding piece too. But
it can kind of create triggers too. I remember like when I was in one of my first car accidents and we spun around on the interstate. We had the music turned up and we were driving through a storm, but we were flying. I know we were doing like 70 or 80, just through a storm, and hit a puddle of water and just started spinning on the interstate, shot off into the ditch, and almost hit a tree, and I yelled out, "Jesus!" Scared, and it just turned sideways right before we hit the tree, and we didn't hit. But actually, when the next time that we were to actually get in a car the following week just to drive to the supermarket or whatever, we had to get in the car. I was triggered. Like, I was scared to get back in that car because I've had that, happen to me. So there's a lot of people with relationships and these different imprints that you're talking about. They're triggered. They think, I've been saying this a lot, they think all men are dogs. This is, all men are this. They only want one thing, all pastors just want your money or whatever. And you have these weird beliefs or whatever that they're not necessarily true, but because of your experience that you had, it is part of your cognitive dissonance. If I get in that car, you start feeling the heart racing. Oh man, I'm scared. I'm nervous. And I think even that at times could be used for good, right? Like, I think the fear and that inward knowing that, hey, I'm in trouble, when it becomes a problem, right?
Right. I look at it like whatever you believe is going to be true. So if you believe people can't be trusted, then you're going to continually invite people into your life that can't be trusted. If you believe that all men are dogs, then you're only going to meet
surrounded
men that
by
are dogs. It's like the world is always
100%.
collaborating to prove you right. So if that's where your belief is, that's what the universe is going to bring before you. So when you start to say, oh, well, I know so-and-so and she's married to somebody who's wonderful, then that creates some rewiring in your brain, because you start to have this, oh, it's possible that there's a man out there that is wonderful and kind and loving. Yeah. And I think that's a particularly hard one, because most of us don't have good relationships modeled to us from a young age. So we see how mom and dad interact, and we transfer a lot of that out to the people that we meet. So if you change your belief system, you change what you experience. If you believe that people can be trusted, then you're going to invite trustworthy people into your experience, which again, no matter what you do, it always brings it back to to within, right? It's the outside world never needs to change, right? It's our perceptions, our beliefs, how we look at things, and then using that to decide, is this a circumstance or situation I want to stay in, or is it time for me to move on? Because as you go through this process, people are either coming with you or they're not, right? And your friends are going to change, your relationships are going to change, because you'll find that you no longer want to be around. Not that your way is right or that their way is wrong, but they're either doing the work, some kind of inner reflection and contemplation, or they're not, and they're happy to stay asleep. And
it's
it
not
gets very
conducive
uncomfortable.
to where you had it. Yeah. It doesn't work out.
Yeah. You can't take them with you. You can offer them tools and reach out a hand, but you can't make anybody come with you.
Man, that's deep. Those people, because you have those friends who are like family, and a lot of people are held back because they don't want to let those friends go. You know what I'm saying? And they know that they have to make changes. I mean, there's so many people, definitely when you're a teenager, it's big, but I mean, even people on into their adult lives who are just like almost, I wouldn't say misery loves company on their end, because they feel the need to change. They know what they're supposed to do, but they know that if they come out with who they really are, how they really feel, they'll be ostracized and all of that kind of stuff. Especially, man, I'm relating this back to the church realm, but like, it was like that coming out of church. Okay, TruthSeekah, we've been listening. You going on podcasts, talking to these people, and then you're coming to Sunday morning church, and like something's got to give, But once they find out who you really are, and you're okay with that, man, it's a wager. You know what I'm saying? Like people are judging you. People are making fun of you. People are talking about you, that, they're, if you step out talking about crystals and energy and healing and angels and stuff like that, they're going to talk about you. But I'll say all the time, they're talking about you anyway.
Right.
You can either,
it might as well be an interesting story.
It should be an interesting story, and you should enjoy what you're doing, right? You're going to be held back for fear of judgment and ridicule, but you're already being judged and ridiculed at the same time, So do what makes you happy, man.
first writing this and asking, okay, God, where are my people? I want to share this. I want to get it out. And hearing God say back there in church, it was kind of like, I'm not going there. My experience wasn't of being on the inside and then coming out, but being on the outside and seeing, especially where we are in the South and
where you at?
I'm in Tennessee.
Tennessee. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. If you can do this work and thrive in the South, you're a true warrior. Like if you can do it and thrive, and you can do it and be successful and not give up, like you're a true warrior, man. I'm in Alabama. I'm a little bit further. Right. It's bad, but definitely there's a special reward for you for not giving up, There
were a lot of times I was looking for an escape probably the first 4 years that I was here. But my husband has, we have kids here, and it's kind of like this is where I'm going to be. So the funny thing is, we've explored all these different churches, have ended up in the Episcopal Church, which I really love. And I'm putting my stuff out on Facebook, all of this stuff, the intuition, the crystals, the oils, all of this stuff. And so many people from the church are responding, and they're like, awesome. Yes, I want to learn more about that. and it's like blowing my mind that would even be possible, because I thought for sure I would be ostracized. I talked to the pastor's wife, or the reverend's wife, and she said, "Oh, honey, you're in the right place. I've been, I've taken Reiki. I've done all these kinds of things." She said, "People are going to love you here." And it was like, just so like, oh, take a breath then. And I don't have to not be my true and authentic self for fear of making somebody else uncomfortable.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's super awesome. Actually, you talked about, before we went live, you were talking about changing, kind of like renaming the Activating Ascension and renaming it something that's not less, I guess it's less woo-woo or whatever you would call it, something that seems more practical, that would open up to a wider audience, but it was still powerful. You want to talk about that, the name that you were talking about?
Sure. It's called Life in the Sweet Spot. And that's what my practice is being called. So I have these, I don't know if you saw the activation cards, the Meditation Made Easy cards. Did you see any of those? Okay. Yeah. That's all being rebranded under Life in the Sweet Spot. And I look at that, like, where is the sweet spot? The sweet spot is at the intersection of our divinity and our humanity. And if that is our intention, and we're always moving towards that, then we're going to be in alignment with our soul and the plan that has been laid for our life. So the Activating Ascension will be assimilated into that, which I'm mainly happy about. I love the book cover. That the signpost on the book cover was actually my husband's idea. And one day he was like, "I'll cut them out and you paint on them and I'll make them look old." And we put that all together and then kind of photoshopped us. So that's my husband and I on the cover holding hands. Because first I had a woman, and people said, "Well, why is it a woman?" So I put a man on there, and then it was, "Why isn't it a man?" And so it's not coupled, it's unified. So that's the purpose of man and woman holding hands. Like, let's move through this unified together, harmonizing our masculine and feminine energies.
Who is the perfect candidate for this book? Is it someone who is just waking up? Because it's like, it's almost like the perfect discipleship companion for waking up, like holding your hand through the process.
Right. It is like, a lot of books. Well, my intention was to give it all away in this book. So it takes you through everything, start to finish. I would say that it's, is it for someone brand new or someone that's been doing this for a while? If you've been doing this for a while, chances are you probably have some dogmatic things that you've adopted and have kind of allowed carried over into this process. So sometimes people brand new do have an easier experience with it. People who are, part of your life, if all of your life is in turmoil, then you probably need to get some help somewhere first, allow a peace somewhere to settle before you go into this.
Yeah.
But if you have one thing or two things that you're working on but you feel loved, you feel supported, and you feel like you have a bit of a foundation, then definitely you can sit down and do this. The first part is all about the intuition, because the second part is intuitively navigated. So if you don't have any sense of intuition, you're going to have a hard time taking yourself through the second part. So I always tell people, stay with that. And also you can read this as like, I hesitate to say, but like bathroom reading, where you just sit down and, you say, what would be most beneficial for me to hear right now today? And you randomly open it up.
There's a lot
and
in
read
there.
That part. I don't recommend, because you're going to be activated. Just having the book, you'll go through a little activation. And then if you sit down and try to read it start to finish, it's going to be a little like that. So go slow and you'll be fine.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Kate Flynn, I appreciate this conversation. If you would like to share out your website one more time where people can check out the book and also check out those paintings as well. Go ahead and give out your website one more time.
Sure. It's www.activatingascension.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Kate Flynn, thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed this. We have to do it again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks again. Bye-bye. Dr. Kate Flynn, ladies and gentlemen, good one. Another good one. I meet all of these really cool people who are out there doing the dang thing. They're doing it, man. Activating Ascension, the ultimate guide for navigating a new life, obtaining your goals, becoming more intuitive, more conscious. You have to do this stuff before. You can't put the cart before the horse. You gotta put it behind the horse. You can't do that because, like I said, you people out here self-sabotaging, man. You can mess it up, man. You can go out there and you want to build he said the perfect principles of Christ. Like, Christ is the foundation, right? He's the cornerstone, the foundation. He's the rock. What if you build your house upon the sand? What if you go to the beach and you build a house? What's going to happen when the waves come up? You don't have a foundation. It's going to wash away. You have to have that foundation. You have to know who you are. You have to know your calling. You have to know why you're here. You have to know your power. You have to know your worth. You can't put the cart before the horse. You have to do it in a process. It's spiritual. It's alchemical, but it's practical. People out here building sandcastles, Jesse Lee says in the chat. Sandcastle. That's it, man. You got to do the work. There is no shortcuts. Like you said, there's no shortcuts. Now there's techniques and there's guidance systems and there's wisdom, and you apply the wisdom and the knowledge. That's there. That's not a shortcut though, because you actually have to do something. You have to apply it to your life to make something happen out of it. It's not a shortcut. There are no shortcuts. You're not promised happiness. You have to work for it. You're not promised a platform. You're not promised a podcast. You're not promised a new album that's recorded well, that's got a lot of good lyrics. That's a lot of work, man. It's not easy. People, and it used to irk me, man. I have these friends who they just beg for more music, and it used to offend me because I work so hard on an album and release it, and then the next week, when's the next one coming out? Oh, I'm ready for the next. It's like, bro, I just gave you everything I had on this album, and you're not you just listen to it. Okay, you want the new stuff, and they're always writing me begging me for unreleased music and all kind of stuff, and a lot of work. It's a lot of process that you have to go through. You have to do the work. If you don't do the work, it doesn't exist. Or you have a really crappy album. I could throw something together. 200 songs under my belt. Doing anything worth building is worth building great. Anything worth doing is worth doing great. Do a good job at it. Just throw it together. We talk about people self-sabotaging. Talking about something that's been really big on YouTube, man. And we're talking about when people like to see you fail. There's people out there who love to see you doing worse than them. Misery does love company. There are people out there who get excited when you're going through a hard time. They get excited, man. I don't know what it is. It's something within them. It's the scapegoat mentality. It's the whipping boy mentality. So we have somebody to point the finger at who's doing worse than they are. It is weird. Maybe we've all been there. It's a weird place to be. You have to, if you find somebody who's doing the same thing that you're doing, and they're doing maybe better than you at the time, that we can applaud them, give them a pat on the back, support their work. Even somebody who you may see as competition, maybe you shouldn't see them as competition, especially if it's about the same type of work that you're doing. If you're doing something with purpose, you know what I'm saying, you would want to, there's a lot of good things that they could expand the the need for what you're doing, and tell new people about this type of work. And a lot of people, it's us for and no more. They don't, they're scared that people will take their fan base, people will take their following and things like that. But it's something about kicking people while they're down. When they're down, point at them. Ha, look at him. He messed up. Told you he was going to mess up. That could be for anybody, man. There's people out there who are waiting for you to fall. But just know this, on the opposite end of the spectrum, there's people out there applauding you when you take steps in the right direction. There's people who want to see you succeed. Find those people, get them in your corner. I've got those people in my corner. I'm in that corner for other people. Find those people. The people who want to see you fail and want to see you fall, you got to get rid of them people, man. They envious. They feel like they deserve what you have. They're more anointed to do the job. They're more qualified. They have more wisdom. Even, you may be in error. You may be teaching things wrong. So therefore, they don't want you to do it. There's all types of things that come into play where people want what you have. That beautiful relationship you have with your wife, somebody's envious of that. They want that. They want that. Jesse Lee says, cuss God and die, Job. Cuss him and die. It was an old inmate I used to work with when I worked with prisoners. And he used to do an imitation, and that's just so funny. Cuss him and die, Job. Cuss God and die. I sound nothing like him, but it made me laugh every time he'd say it. Talking about Job's wife. Cuss God and die. People want to see you fail. They want you to cuss God and die. They want you to curse God and die. They want to see you self-sabotage. They want to see everything just fold in on you. It's like a train wreck. Like when you're passing by car accident, trying to look, see if anybody's hurt. You're trying to look, see if you can see something. They're holding up the sheets. You're like, see anybody? Oh, I seen a dead body. Seen a dude. You're like, you want to look. You're a train wreck. You just can't look away. Train's about to crash. Even before like trying to help or something, you just want to watch. You just want to watch the train wreck. I've been there. I've seen stuff out there, and like people headed down the wrong road and they can't take correction. They can't take any help or criticism, and it's going to be a train wreck. You can't prevent all of them, right? You can't prevent all the train wrecks. You can't live somebody's life for them. You can't make them believe a certain type of thing or make them show empathy. They have to learn for themselves, right? So we're wanting to point at people and mock them while they're down. I see it's happening like on YouTube. Some months ago, the YouTuber, big guy, Logan Paul, went out to Mount Fuji, and there's a big forest. I think it's in Japan. Mount Fuji, and they call it the suicide forest, a huge forest. You can get lost in it. He goes into the forest, and they're shooting their little vlogging and stuff. He's just doing it for fun on vacation, and they found a dead body. Somebody hung themselves in the woods, and they was the ones to find it. And he put it on camera, and then he uploaded it the next day, and got millions of views. He got a strike on his channel, lost a bunch of advertising. They were going to delete his YouTube channel. I think he lost a bunch of subscribers. It was this huge controversy about how he showed that. So now we need to ban him from YouTube, and how could you? How dare you? And just, he turned it into a PSA. He thought he was doing something good, but it blew up in his face. And like, he was like the laughing stock and the ridicule. And like, you could see the competition because they were doing other videos on it. Like they were saying, how could Logan Paul profit off of someone's death, and he's making money off of this, and blah 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 blah. And so all these other people are doing their rebuttal videos, pointing at his flaws and what he did wrong, and they're making money off of the dead body too. They're making money off of it. But looking at his fall and demise and how they're happy, they're just kicking him while he's down. Everybody was doing videos, all the big names. That's all you seen. It went on for a couple weeks, you know, and he almost quit vlogging. At this point, I think he has, but he went through like a really dark time. Obviously, he learned his lessons, and it wasn't right, and there was wisdom that wasn't used, but it happened to him. And the same thing's happening now to another big YouTuber by the name of FouseyTube. FouseyTube is, I don't know, he's pretty much going crazy. He's doing a bunch of delusional stuff and booking concerts, saying that artists are going to show up, and that artist doesn't even know anything about it. Bunch of crazy stuff, and they're falling apart. They're going on crazy rants that don't make sense. They're doing all kinds of weird stuff, and everybody knows it. And instead of like reaching out to the dude for help, they're all looking at his story and what he's doing. They're doing commentary on it. They're like making videos, making fun of him, and like, he's gonna explode, man. He's gonna kill himself, and all of this kind of stuff. And people are like kicking him while he's down, and they're pointing out all the flaws and all the ridiculous things that he's doing. It's very interesting, the whipping boy syndrome and the scapegoat, that we have a need to point at people who are doing worse than us, kicking them while they're down. The song by Tool, what's it called? It's called Right Into, talking about monkey killing monkey over pieces of the ground. They just fight. They just war. I'm better. I'm taking it from you. Instead of sharing, like, there's enough to go around for everybody, right? Instead of sharing, you want to kick somebody while they're down. You want to make fun of somebody. But man, I'm telling you, there's such a blessing in seeing and being able to have that vision. To be able to have that vision to see people, especially if you're a person of faith, because this is faith, being able to see somebody that are not as though they were. Just like the valley of dry bones in the Bible, where Elijah was able to look at the field, or I think it was Elijah, Ezekiel. It slips me right now, but Elijah, I think. I have to look it up, because if I don't look it up, let's see. Valley of dry bones. Let's see who that was. I think it was Elijah. It's in Ezekiel, so I guess it was Ezekiel. Okay, yeah. Ezekiel looks at the valley of dry bones, and he's talking to God, and it says, can these bones live? God looks at him and says, hey, can these bones live? A valley of dry bones. It was an army that was defeated, dead, ruined. Can these bones live? He said, oh, sovereign Lord, you alone know. He said, no, son of man, speak to these dry bones, and they will live again. Can you see it? And he speaks to them, and they become a great army. These dry bones get flesh, and muscles begin to form, and this huge army of defeat rises up and becomes new life. And it's a parable. It's an allegory how we are to be able to look at people as well who are going through a rough spot. Can you see that person though they aren't as though they were? Can you see the potential in that person? That's a blessing. It's hard to do. It can be a curse. It can be a curse. You can see the good in people, and you can try to prophesy, speak it out of them, encourage them. It can be a curse because you got to know when to move on. You're trying to make people change and things like that. You know the way that is right. Oh, this is the way you do it. I'm trying to tell you, this is the way. And you just want to preach and preach and preach. And it can be a curse because you're sitting there spending all this time with people who really don't want to change, who don't want the help. And being able to see people But when you find those people who want it, and you can prophesy, and you're a person of vision, you're a seer, you're able to see. If that's you, like, you could do that with people and you can watch them change, man. That's beautiful. That's alchemy. Like, that's true spiritual alchemy. To be able to see somebody, man, I've seen it, man. I'll give you guys this quick story. When we were street preaching back in the day, last week, when we were street preaching back in, man, what year was that? 2009, maybe. A long time ago. When we were street preaching, we used to go out at 10 o'clock at night, and we'd stay till like 4 in the morning. And so we'd go to downtown in front of the biggest Club Atlantis, downtown Mobile, and we'd set up, we'd wear all white, and we'd preach and we'd prophesy, and seen a lot of cool stuff. We'd get harassed, you know, people drunk coming down there, people wanting to debate with us, you know, all this kind of stuff. I mean, we was kind of asking for it. You're down there, we're preaching repentance and turn from your sins. The Most High's coming back to destroy this place, all kind of stuff. It was when I was running with the Hebrew Israelites. So we'd go down there, we'd preach, and we'd get harassed. And sometimes people would harass us. I remember this one guy. He was a homeless dude. The homeless guy would come up while people were talking crap and stuff. And he said, "Hey, y'all don't mess with them. That's God's people right there. Y'all don't mess with them. That's God's people. They doing the right thing." You talking? This is a homeless guy who was strung out on dope, living on the streets. But he knew what we were doing. He knew we were down there trying to preach righteousness and trying to help people, really. And they're like, "Oh, y'all get out of here. Jesus ain't real." Whatever the case is. He's like, "Hey, that's God's people, man. Y'all better not mess with them." And he'd always, you know, try to take up for us. And this guy was strung out on dope, living on the street. He's a homeless man. Some months later, we're at church service, and that guy comes in, because we had a homeless ministry. We'd reach out to the homeless, and our church was full of homeless people. My old pastor, Pastor Brian, I did the interview with him. The church, the cave, it was full of homeless people. It stunk. Bunch of homeless people in the back. You know, and people knew that that's what we meth addicts, crack addicts, prostitutes. Those were the people that we went after. So that homeless guy, they were busting him back and forth from Tent City in the woods, where all the homeless people were living in the woods, busting him back and forth from there to our church. And that guy would come. And just over a period of time, man, I began to see God work in his life and restore him, and go through, you know, the Christian rehab programs, Celebrate Recovery, come off of dope, get a job, hold down a job, get a place to live, all of this stuff. And he got off the streets, and he became a functioning member of society. And he's a different person, man. He was that valley of dry bones that people went out of their way, man, to go pick him up, to speak life into him, to encourage him. And I really believe that it was because he took up for God's people. I think that when he was downtown in downtown Mobile, in that state, but he still was trying to, "Hey, don't mess with those people. That's God's people. Y'all need to listen. They're trying to help y'all." You know, he would say stuff like that. And then I'd seen him restored. And my mind has to go back to where I seen him at my first encounter with this guy. Downtown, strung out, but taking up for God's angels, God's messengers. He's seen that. He knew that. I believe that God blessed him for that. I believe that God restored him. I believe God restored him because of his loving kindness. But I think that act of faith and that perseverance and him being bold to stand up, I have to make the connection. That's my first encounter with him, and then seeing him restored. And then we begin to see that a lot, man. We begin to see that with a lot of homeless people coming off the streets and things like that. And it was beautiful. But it's been able to prophesy. It's been able to look at someone in a state that, though they aren't, though they will be. I might be down right now, but I'm not out. Y'all may have given up on me, but God hasn't. To understand that, to know that, to embody that, and to walk in that, and let that be your truth. You know, though your father and mother forsake you, he said, I'll never leave you, I'll never forsake you. To know that, like, that's a truth. That's a law. I'll never leave you, never forsake you. Well, he'll leave you if you do this, or he'll forsake you if you do that. You know, I've seen God forsake. No, you'll never see the righteous forsaken. You'll never see the godly begging for bread. Begging. No. Never. I don't care where you are. He's got you. He's got you. You've given him your past. He's healing you. He's healed you. Give him your future. Let go of it. You got some good plans. You think it's going to work out this way. You want to kind of see that plan out. Give it to him. Let him purify it. Don't be scared. He'll purify it and give it back. He'll make it better. And he'll make it where you don't have to strive. We don't have to trick people. Where you just show up. You don't even have to really do much of the work. You just show up. Show up with clean hands and a pure heart. You get the vision. You stay faithful. And you build it with God. Whatever the future that is that you want for yourself and for your family. Restoration. People that you've wronged. People that have wronged you. Restoration. To restore all things. Whatever it is, man, that you're believing for or that you want. Trust God for it. The fears. Get over the fear. Give them up. Give that to God. Give him everything. And when it's in due time, in the right season, he'll give it back, cleaned up and polished and taking all the imperfections out. That's a process for a lot of people, you know, because we think that God wants to take things from us and doesn't want us to have fun or enjoy life or whatever the case is. He wants you to give him what you have so that he can give you something better. He's got something for you, man. Trust me, it's going to be worth it. Don't feel like you're giving up and you're losing out or missing out on fun or whatever the case is. Give it up. Give it to him, and I guarantee you, eye has not seen, mind has not even conceived, ear has not heard the things that God has in store for those who love him. If you trust him, you don't trust him. All of it, we're talking about these testings and these things that you got to go through to learn how to overcome, to learn how to be a good person, you know, to learn not to gossip. All of these things you have to go through is to learn. And part of this is that learning curve. You don't trust him. Okay. What do I have to do to show you that I got you? He'll get creative. He'll get creative. Trust him. Pass that test. Don't tempt God. You know what I'm saying? Just trust him. He's not taking anything away from you because he's stingy. He's got something awesome for you. And it all comes down to your trust. The Bible says without faith, it's impossible to please God. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. The Bible also goes on to say that whatsoever is not of faith is sin. Whatsoever that you do that is not of faith is sin. To be able to see the things that are not as though they were. What is it? The faith is like trust in things hoped for, but the evidence of things not seen is knowing what you got. Knowing that you're going to be okay. That faith transforms into knowing. I'm telling you. We talk about that a lot. Faith transforms into knowing. Starts with believing, transforms into faith, then it moves into knowing. Knowing God, knowing your calling, knowing your will. Most of you believe in a will. Most of you have faith in a will. Like, I got big plans, man. You don't know how they're going to work out. You don't even know how to approach it, but you believe it. You have faith in it. But then that faith is going to transform to where you know it. You know your calling. You know your orders. You know how to be impactful. You know how to show mercy. You know how to show grace. And it's through learning. I really believe that. I really believe that, I learned not to gossip from having whole congregations gossip about me. You know what I'm saying? I've learned not to gossip by knowing what it feels like to have people gossip about me. Okay, don't do that. Don't gossip about people. That feels bad. That's not good. Don't steal. Don't judge. You ever had anything stolen from you? Like, you learn, man. I really believe, like, the things that we put out there that, what I'm saying, we get it comes back to us, like, stealing from people. Funny, like, I used to call in the radio shows when I was a kid, and they put you right on air, and I just start cursing, screaming profanities, and I'd record it, and we'd listen back, and we'd laugh about it, and show our friends and cousins and stuff. We did that for fun. What you want to do? I'm finna call. They live. Here's the number. Call in. Hey, who was speaking with? And I just go in cussing. Now I have a radio show, and I take callers, and I answer the phone. Hey, what's up, TruthSeekah? And kids are cursing. Just curse. They come on here and they curse. I quit taking calls recently. I don't really deal with the phone lines too much anymore, but people, and I see that, I can't, my mind has to go back. I've seen this before somewhere. Where'd you see it? I used to do it. Okay. We learn, man. We learn from everything, and the best bet, all of this stuff helps. There's things to do to be mindful. This book here, Activating Ascension, really is, like, I really think this is a good book. She sent me an autographed copy, and there's things that we can do that are practical, but it's about learning, and it's about applying it. If we don't learn from the past, we don't learn from the mistakes, we're doomed to repeat them. And so learn as quick as you can. I really do think that that's the shortcut. The shortcut simply is learning as quick as you can. Stopping the cycle as quick as you can. Getting those people out of your life as quick as you can. Getting cool people in your life as quick as you can. Learn what God is trying to teach you in every situation, every season. I don't think that there's a season that you enter where God's not trying to speak to your heart or trying to teach you something. Every season, every place. You want to get out of that place, learn everything. Okay. And people are like, they get, I'm trying to learn everything. I'm trying, but just continue. Okay, God, what is it? Be mindful of God. What is it? God, what is it? God, what is it? And however long you're there, and then you graduate and you go to the next level, whether that's you're at a job, I'm going to talk about multiple seasons at a job. You could be at a job and there's multiple seasons and multiple things that he's trying to teach you in those jobs and things, and just learn it, apply it, graduate, go to the next level. Rinse, wash, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. Do the same thing. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. It's working. Consistency. Keep doing it. Don't give up. Don't give up. It gets boring sometimes. Monotony sometimes. Keep doing it. It's going to pay off in the end. It's not going to pay off if you quit, if you self-sabotage. It's not going to pay off if you move on to something else. Another cool idea. Be mindful. Stay mindful. Bring it into the moment. Learn from it. Do it. Make it happen. Appreciate you guys, man. Enjoyed this episode. Enjoyed this talk with you all. Shout out to Chris. I try to turn my those donations. I try to turn the sound off until the end of the show. It's like at the end, I'll try to go and turn the sound on so that when I get a notification or if it reads something out, that it won't be in the middle of a conversation when somebody's talking. So I try to go back and do it and play it at the end, but I forgot to go on and mute it before we went live. So thank you for the donation though, Chris. Chris sent the donation and I think it played a sound and read something, but that was my fault, not yours. So thank you for the donation, man. I really appreciate that. Thank you guys for supporting my work again on Patreon. Thank you for co-creating this with me, allowing me to create this, to birth this. Thank you for partnering with me, believing in my work, and making this happen. It doesn't exist without you. Thank you. Patreon.com/TruthSeekah. Get access to all of my music as well as the School of the Mystics, which is tonight. We're going to kick it tonight. Yep, we're doing it. School of the Mystics. TruthSeekah.com, Patreon.com/TruthSeekah. Look forward to seeing you guys. After the show, it's always the after party. Kind of what we deem now, right? The after party is in Discord. Discord link is in the descriptions. We're going to hang out after the show, but we're always in Discord. So go ahead and add us. It doesn't even matter when. Somebody said 3 a.m. We're in here hanging out. Trust me, people are hanging out in Discord. Make sure y'all do that. There's some really cool people over there. I'm talking about those people who believe in you, those people who are going to encourage you and want the best for you. They're over there. So no shenanigans, though. No shenanigans. We'll kick you out if you go with that bull crap. I love you guys, man. We'll do it again very soon. Shalom, shalom. Stream schedule is updated on my website. All the new guests. Peace, peace.
Your way so much higher than mine, so much higher than mine, so much deeper than mine, so much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the TruthSeekah podcast, head over to TruthSeekah.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/TruthSeekah.